So we're here to solve this Thermo-Sudoku by Zoltán called pentominoes. It has these 8 themed pentomino shapes and thermometers that are driving a lot of the visual part of the solve. They also, though, by having 5 constrained digits, particularly in limited spaces, they lean into one of the 2 or 3 most common types of Thermo-Sudoku tricks, which is actually to play into the degrees of freedom. In a box like this, where there are 9 digits, 2 already placed, there are 7 digits that remain, 5 of which will be in an increasing series in this thermometer shape with 2 degrees of freedom. And so that means that if we take our smallest values that are remaining, 1, 2, and 3, this is a range that has 2 degrees of freedom. The next spot is 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 7, 5, 7, 8. Again, jumping over 6, which is in the box, and never getting as large as 9, which is already in the box. And you can say that's writing far too many digits, and in some cases that's true. Like, most people may not notate it this way, but this is one of the key constraints that's always going to be true in a thermometer, particularly in any space where there are only a few white cells remaining. And if you look at digits around where I can eliminate the 4 from below, I've removed one of those degrees of freedom, and that will either contract the space below or after that value, where 4 is on the top end here. It means that now 3 has to be removed from the top end of any cells before it as we get to the end of the thermometer. And do similar sort of thing down here. This bottom left box has, again, 7 digits that remain, 5 that are in the increasing series in the thermometer. So 2 degrees of freedom, so 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 3, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, and 6, 7, 8. 6 in this case sees a cell, so we again eliminate the top values coming down, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 5 going across. So this is one of the ways to think through the puzzle, and one of the ways, if you only look this way, you could see that, for instance, a 1 has to start in the cell because it's the only place a 1 is still left. That can be a value in the thermometer shape. Most people won't do all that bookkeeping, at least not at the start, because it's not, they may view it as less elegant, or they may view it as just a lot of writing and erasing. So a different way to start in a thermometer puzzle, which also works really, really well in this grid, to go to extreme values like 1s and 9s. And a reason to look at those is they have to particularly eliminate thermometer cells. They can always be in a white cell, but they can't be in a bulb or a middle of the thermometer in the case of a 9. In the case of a 1, it can't be in the end of the thermometer or the middle of the thermometer. So I started this grid just looking vertically. These are the only cells for 1s, and these are only cells for 9s in these spaces that already have the givens. But there's something else that's key in a thermometer. Maybe the last trick to look at is consider where in the grid there are rows, columns, or regions that have almost all their cells in thermometer shapes. This column looks pretty good, this column looks pretty good, in part because there are only 1 white cells, but this row, this 8th row, looks awesome, and that every single cell is part of the thermometer. And the way to look through those is to start with bulbs or ends, and say that we need to, for sure, put 1s in bulbs. There's 1 bulb in that whole row, so the only place the smallest possible digit can go is right here. We can even take that one step further and say, where can a 2 go? A 2 can't go in any of these cells because it's too far away from this bulb. 2 can't go in even this cell on the far right because this value above has to be smaller, so a 2 is absolutely the minimum in this cell. That gives us where we have a 3, and the 3 may be able to go in this cell with the 2 above, or can go in this cell with the 2, 1 down below. But we're sort of at the limit of what 1 and 2 can do. We go to the largest value of 9. In this whole row, there are 2 ends, but 1 end is in this cell that sees 9s both in the column and in the region. So the only place 9 can go is in the other end. And putting in that 9, we now will see that even putting an 8 in this whole row is fairly limited. An 8 can't go in this cell because there's a larger value below it. 8 can't go in this cell because we need 2 larger values in the grid, including a value here which can't be a 9. And so an 8 has to be in this end. And so one thing that you can do is find those constrained thermometer shapes and look at the extremes. And so we had 8 and 2 working well and getting us there, 1 and 9 getting us here. But in my actual solve of the puzzle, 1 and 9 are the first and only things I look at, and getting in the 1s I just marked. Get a 1 down in this bulb, puts in this 1, coming up this column, got a 1 in this bulb. Need a 1 in this row, but it's got to be in the right cell because the 1 is below here in this middle thermometer. Gets a 1 in this space. This 9 coming up here has only 2 cells left for it to go into. Puts another 9 here. These 2 9s eliminate all the options in the 4th and 5th row in the space. We get a 1, get a 1, get a 1, 9, get a 9. The 1s eliminate, and while I won't put in more than, say, this note here, all the 1s are placed. 6 of the 9s are placed, as well as notations with last digits for those givens. And so this is a really great start to the grid. and my start to the grid. And now I would revert back, having placed some of these extremes into these spaces, to again thinking through the ranges of values that work out. And one of the things that's really intriguing to me is, again, this row that now has only thermometer shapes remaining in it. And again, extremes are useful to think about. What is the extreme that can go into a cell like this? Well, it's got 1, 2, 3 more to go. If I actually didn't look at anything else, I could go through and write in my ladder like this. But you'll see that this ladder is pretty silly to write in because the 3 and 4 are already eliminated from these spaces. And so 2 is known for sure, 5 is known for sure, and 5 is actually a quick escalating ladder. There's nothing else for that thermometer shape except these 5 digits exactly. These digits also constrained to be in an increasing series now quickly go into the grid. And while we don't have as much we can say here, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, we have made quick headway into these placements. Having marked some of these points of progress on the left side of the grid, we can come back to some of our preferred columns. We said this column had only one white cell. It actually now just has 2, 3, and 8 to place. 2, 3 can go in the cell, but 8 is far too large. 2 and 3 are too small for this end of the thermometer. It has to be 5 or more. So we get this 8 placed. Now a different way, we got it earlier by just looking at this row alone. You can get it just by thinking about the column constraints. We still have to think about the overall range of digits in this thermometer, and we have 3 and 4 eliminated up above. So we actually have a case where a 3 has to be in one of these cells, but let's look at the digits that could go in this first cell. 2 and 5 are now the only ones with degrees of freedom. If a 2 is placed there, we can put a 5 in the next cell, that's the next value up, and if a 6 is already in the column above, the next smallest digit is a 7, but the 7 is too far away from the 8. There's nothing to go in the cell, so we actually have a case where this is a force 5, that 5 now propagates downwards, forces the 2. We've got a 7, 8 pair at the top of this column. Putting this 2 forces this 3, forces this 2, puts in this 6, 7 pair. We've got a 3, 4, 5 coming up above, and the 3, 4 has to precede the 4, 5 in the thermometer, and the 4 to the right eliminates this cell and makes it just a 3, 5 option. So this is pretty good headway. We have some more we can do with some of the digits we've got in the grid. One of the things, if we just come back, I'm just looking at this 8 now just because I feel like it's worth doing so. The 8's eliminated in many directions and can't be near a bulb, so an 8 is here. 8 is here, which puts an 8 up top. Completes a pair up top for this column, so this column is now fairly limited to these values, and I see the 3 over to the left, so I can eliminate that. I can see any more eliminated. Nothing eliminated straight away from the digits we have in the grid, except that actually a 4 has to be in the rightmost column in this middle box. So a 4 is eliminated from these cells, and that puts in this 2 cleanly. Gives me this 2, which I had before, but now through a different route, where this middle box is a 2 in the center group. 2 is here, so this is 3, 4. This is 4, 5. This was meant to be sort of eliminated there. Again, the 4 being up above, this can't be a 4. The 5 over to the left, this has to be a 3. Puts 4, 5, puts in 3, puts in 3 and 4. Making good progress this way. We've got 2s and 3s now in the 7th and 9th columns, so let's get them up to the top. The 2 is the smallest digit remaining, always at the bulb. 3 is the next smallest digit, always the next cell. We're going to have a 4 somewhere in this space. A 5 could go in the cell, but it can't be a 6, it can't be a 7, and the 8 is over to the right, so this is a single, has to be a 5. And we get this in the grid. 6 and 7 left over in these cells. And now let's, having placed this 2, let's keep looking at the extreme digits. So 2s and 2s, we've got 3 cells here that could take a 2, but can't be in the middle or end of the thermometer, particularly where the bulb can only be as small as a 2. So we get this 2 put in the grid, gives us a 2 and a 7. We put in this 3, which we're going to propagate over to this thermometer with the no speed marked in. That now gives us 3, 3, 3, where this is the only cell left in the top box for a 3. We've got a 4 in either of these cells, but let's start to look through our degrees of freedom. We've got 4 digits to place, 2 degrees of freedom. So this normally would be a 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9, but seeing 6 and 8 are removed from the cell. This for sure is a 7. That makes this 7, 6, and 4, 5, but a 5's over to the left, so this 5 goes away. This is a 44. This 5, 6 still looks legitimate from what's around it. This 8, 9 still looks fine from what's around it, but we've got a fair number of digits. The 3 and 4 now need to both come to the bottom. This is the last cell that a 3 can go into, and the 4 has to be in one of these two cells, but it's going to, by the thermometer constraints, need to be closer. Eliminates this 4 here, so this is 6 now going to an 8 with 4 above. The 8 is going to have to be in one of these remaining cells. This bottom row is 6 and 9. The 6 is eliminated from this cell, so 9 is there, 6 is there. 6 and 6 come up here, put in the 6, puts in 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, puts in this last 9. The 8 is here as last cell, 5 going there, got 5, 8, 7, 7 and 6, and we finish the grid. So lots of different Thermo-Sudoku techniques you can use to get through the Saturday puzzle, but it's almost key to switch between them. Starting with 1s and 9s, did a lot of work to get initial placements. That was at least my written path. But even thinking through the constraints of these digits, where we've got 5 digits to place with 7 spots in total, each cell has 3 degrees of freedom along the thermometer. As we worked through some of the spaces, after we placed some of the 1s and 9s, we actually had removed two of the 3 degrees of freedom from some of the cells, which forced all the rest. And so that way of cascading information through the grid is pretty key. Even in places you may not expect it, if you can just mark some of these things in, we could track through most of the thermometer shapes by, at the right stage of the puzzle, just considering the remaining degrees of freedom along those cells, even finding a particularly constrained cell, and going from there. So hope you got a sense from this puzzle of different tips and techniques to think about Thermo-Sudoku, different notation, particularly long thermometers to watch for, even just ways to scan the puzzle for rows or columns that are almost all thermometer shapes or given numbers. Those are all key places to look to just know where to search and make the next points of headway. So hope you learned something with this grid, and I'll see you again soon.